Welcome back to Built Fabrications, and today we're going to be tackling the new rear lift kit in the back of the 79 F150. We're going to be getting rid of the old stock height springs and the lift blocks that are currently in this truck, and we're going to be going and replacing it with aftermarket lift springs. These are from Rough Country. Whenever we go to pop these in, we'll take a better look at them. And going with the lifted spring is going to get rid of this block, should minimize the potential for any axle wrap with the lifted application. And we're going to be getting some new N3 shocks put in here as well. So on top of that, whenever we replace the springs, we're also going to replace the shackles and get rid of those old worn out ones that are currently in the truck.
You can see the riding on the pavement. Young kids, they're growing up in basements.
So first things first, then we're going to go ahead and pop out the old shocks, and then we'll work on getting this axle drop down and take it apart, replace the springs, and put it back together. The rear end's pretty simple, so stay tuned. So our lower bolts are already out of this, so that's a good jump start on that. So we just need to move on, take a 9/16 and go ahead and pop off this top nut on this shock and get it out. With your shocks out, you're just going to say, see you later to that guy, to the other side, and we'll move on to the next step. The next thing you're going to want to do is go ahead and get this truck lowered down, and we'll pop out the bolts, one for the shackle, the other one for the front bushing here on the leaf spring. Obviously, I'm using a lift. You don't need a lift to do this. I've done this many a time. Actually, this would be my first time doing it on a lift. Usually doing it with the floor jack and jack stand. So if that's what you're doing, don't sweat it, no problem. If you are doing it on those, just jack it up. And then you want to try to find your neutral point wherever you take the weight off these bolts so you can get them out. Obviously, make sure you have the vehicle on jack stands. Put some jack stands or something underneath your axle just as a precaution so you don't get hurt. And then take out the bolts, lower it down. What I'm going to do is put the wheels on, and then I'm going to lower this down and find that neutral point to where there's, and when I say neutral point, what I mean by that is you don't have gravity pulling down, putting tension on the bolt, and you also don't have the weight of the vehicle on the tire that's pushing up. You want to find that balance point. All right, so whenever you find your neutral point, you'll know that you're there pretty close to it, because it will want to try to walk out on its own whenever you spin it. You can see it's kind of walking out. Sometimes you might want to put a wrench or something behind it, and you can see I can even kind of slide it out by hand. That's a good indicator. So you can see the bolts out and it's still lined up. So we got that perfectly on that neutral balancing point to where you don't have any weight pulling down and you don't have any weight pushing up. So we're gonna go ahead and pop that off. We'll do the same for the front, and then move over to the other side. And then whenever you have the axle unbolted from the frame, we're gonna go ahead and lift the truck back up out of our way, and then we gain access to change out these leaf springs. All right, so now we have this off. One thing to mention too is I think it goes without saying, if your drive shaft is hooked up, disconnect it. But just in case, now I said it. So whenever you're at this point, the next thing you want to do is just pop off the 4 nuts for your U-bolts. So we'll go ahead and do that now, and that's going to have the spring come loose. So make sure you're out of the way of it in case it falls. So we got our new assembly put together here. We're gonna reuse our 2-inch factory block, and then we have our spring pack, and then we're reusing the U-bolt plates for the top as well. We got them cleaned up and painted. And then all you do is line it up, make sure all your alignment pins are set in the right location, and then your everything is nice and square with your leaf spring, and then go ahead and tighten it down. This needs to be torqued down. I gotta check the torque spec on it, check your instructions. I'm just gonna snug it up, and then I'll come back after everything's in place and torque it then. All right, so we got both of our spring assemblies put together. I put on our new shackles. The open part goes towards the inside. Just look at, if you're changing these out with your lift, just take a look at the way that it was before. And then you want to get these snug, but not too tight so they have room to move. If they're too tight, they'll bind up. You want to have nice free travel in your suspension. So that's about what you're looking for, where it's got a little bit of resistance, but it still moves. So now at this point, we just gotta go ahead and bring the truck back down, or if you're working off of a jack stand, or a floor jack, you want to go ahead and bring the axle up. Eventually these will swing down like this. You drop your bolt through your perch, and then do the same for the front. And then you're just on the shocks, and this installation is complete. All right, we got everything bolted back up and tightened down. So the next step and the last step that we need to do is throw on our shocks. Whenever you go to put in your shock, leave this strap on until you get your bottom bolt in and get it started. You don't have to get it fully tightened down. Leave it actually a little bit loose so you have a little bit of play to work with to get the top set. But as soon as you pop off this strap, cut it, whatever you do, it's gonna wanna start extending. So whenever you have that set up, you're gonna have 2 bushings. I'm gonna swing this down for a second. Oh my, all right, well, that's great. Well, now it's already extended, so I'll just show you. For your bushings, you got one that goes on the bottom. You have a flat side, and you have a side that's got a little raised part. That's gonna go in, so that the raised lip goes towards the mounting part. And then on the top, you're gonna flip it the other way. So that goes down. So you want the 2 raised parts to touch. You're gonna have another flat washer on the top or concave washer on the top. And then you have a nut that I misplaced, but there it is. And that will go on there. So that's kind of the orientation of how everything's gonna wanna get put together. All right, so we got everything put together. Rear half of the lift kit is installed. Went together smoothly enough. And yeah, with the rest of this all being done, we have our drive shaft to get put in and the brakes and the back half of this truck, at least suspension and chassis wise, mechanically speaking, is complete. So thank you guys all for watching. Hopefully this video helped. If it did, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And you guys get outside, get wrenching, piss off your neighbors, disappoint your mom, and until next time, keep on keeping on.
You can see the riding on the pavement. Young kids, they're growing up in basements. Online, a whole new generation. I'ma make mine, so you better go take it. Always, they need a new replacement. Decentralized, can't contain it. We're changing lives, yeah, upgrading. Call it suicide of the older generation. What keeps you up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet.